South African teachers, irrespective of age, will be vaccinated under government's rollout program with immediate effect. Let's now cross live to our reporter Linda Mnisi, who has been covering the briefing. Linda, with the vaccination process expected to kick off this week, the minister is hoping to get more buy-in from educators who might be very hesitant to get their jab.
Absolutely, Nhlanhla. You'll remember one official who was in that briefing speaking about a survey that was conducted by the unions, indicating that initially there was about 50% of the educators who said that they wouldn't, be taking the vaccine if it were to be made available by June. He says that figure has increased, and that is quite worrying. I mean, you would have also heard the minister speaking about, the issues around whether the hesitancy will affect, of course, teachers going back to school. You'll remember there are those that are working from home because they have comorbidities. The minister saying that, well, if they are not going to be taking the vaccines, they will also have to return to school.
Has the minister given any further detail on how actually this vaccination process will be carried out? I'm speaking about measures that are rather issues that also answer to questions around registration for these vaccinations.
Well, they have given an indication, Nhlanhla, in terms of how this will roll out. They say that, of course, the data and the number they continue to give to the Department of Health, but also indicating that about 582,000 teachers, this also includes food handlers and others who work in the schooling community, will also be getting this jab. So all those plans in terms of capturing data continues. They do also indicate that in some provinces, like the Limpopo province, for example, they did, of course, experience some issues, but that work continues.
At this point, do we know who will be prioritized? Because given from the minister's statement, it sounds like all staff will be eligible to get their jab.
Yeah, at this point, you'll remember the minister saying that all staff is eligible to get the jab. They are not going to, they also speak about how it's not only in public schools where teachers and the schooling community will be getting the jab, but they're saying that everybody will be prioritized, especially given the fact that there's been a lot of instability in the education sector around, of course, the rotation of learners and the number of times that learners come to school. So essentially this is another way of trying to get some stability in the sector. The minister saying that they're quite worried about the way things are going, and it is, of course, a concern that there isn't much stability in the sector when it comes to also learning and catching up and the curriculum continuing.
So, Linda, also very interesting that the minister touched on the issue that schools will be closing very soon, and at this point she sees no need to close schools entirely, saying that they would rather opt for a differentiated approach to their response to COVID-19. What did she have to say about that?
Well, the minister is saying that there are about 25,000 schools here in the country, and that every province or every school should be dealing with the issue of infections with a differentiated approach on a case-to-case basis. In fact, she goes on to explain how, in some instances you would hear from the community and not necessarily the school knowing about these cases. At times there is a case, but that person has not gotten into contact with anybody, which may cause the school to be shut down. So he says there is, of course, that buy-in from the entire schooling community, the SGBs, the parents, the principals, the teachers, of continuing with learning and teaching. So going forward, there won't be any school closures, as some parties have been calling for. He says they will be dealing with any case of infection on a case-by-case issue.
Well, Linda, we are expected to hear from unions as well, but very quickly, has the minister said anything about the interactions that she's had with teacher unions?
Well, yes. I mean, she says this morning she's had to consult everybody and will continue, engaging the NGOs in the sector around the way forward. She says, in fact, she spoke about this while responding to the question around what she has to say about the EFF's call for school closures, saying that at this point there seems to be a buy-in from all the relevant stakeholders that she's engaged and has spoken to. So that's where she gets her cue from. So if there is, of course, that buy-in from these unions, there's buy-in from the SGB, there's buy-in from the parents, then of course she will continue. She also speaks about how the advisory committee plays such a critical part and a critical role in the decisions that are taken within the department.
Well, thanks there to our reporter Linda Mnisi, who's been following all the proceedings there after the DBE's press briefing, outlining that the vaccination process for teachers and all staff at schools is expected to commence from next week.